Okay, we're back again. So I'm Dr. Yasser. I'm one of the consultant neonatologists at Al Qasimi Hospital in Sharjah, and also I'm program director of the neonatal fellowship for the Arab world. I have nothing to disclose. So again, we saw a lot of these sad pictures over the last few days. We are so sorry for that. I'd like to introduce to you Afra. So I think most of you know the story of Afra. Afra was in the womb of her mother at the time of the earthquake, and she got delivered under the crash of the buildings. And when they saved her, they cut the rescuer. They cut the umbilical cord, and they took her to the NICU. And thanks God, she survived. She made it. So she lost her father, her mother, her brothers and sisters, and she will be taken care by her uncle. So let's keep having hope. Okay, so that's okay. Okay, so I think we should all stick to hopes, and we should take care of these two little creatures, okay? And that's, I think, why we are all here in this conference. So when Yahya called me just 2 days before the conference, he wanted to reschedule my lecture. And guess what? It was at the time of the rush hour, and the second day in the middle of the schedule, and he pushed me all the way in the last lecture of the last day. So that was unfair to start with. But then I thought about it in a different way, okay? So he's just saving the best for last. So let's hope, this is going to be the best, and let's hope I will be able to debrief you today, okay? So let's okay, I hope so. So what I will try to do today, I will take you quickly through the concept of medical debriefing, especially in the NICU. So we'll go through some introduction, definitions, comparison between feedback and debriefing, what's post-incident debriefing, what's post-simulation debriefing, the steps, the techniques, the preparation, something we use as adjunct to the debriefing, what are the things that are going to be barriers between you and the debriefing process, how to debrief the debriefer himself or herself, and then we will show you some quick videos about it, okay? So let me wake you up and let's quickly see this video. Again. No, it was downloaded. Okay.
مع Property Finder نساعدك لتجد أكثر من مجرد منزل. Property Finder أسهل طريق لبيتك الجديد.
But let's
Good night, sweetheart. Night, Mom.
Sleep tight, kiddo.
So let's see how debriefing goes, okay? There a sound? Sound.
My friends call me Phlegm.
Mr. Bile, can you tell me what you did wrong?
I fell down?
No, before that. Can anyone tell me Mr. Bile's big mistake? Anyone? Ugh. Let's take a look at the tape. Here we go. Right. There. See? The door. You left it wide open. And leaving the door open is the worst mistake any employee can make because...
It could let in a draft?
It could let in a child.
Oh, Mr. Water News.
There's nothing more toxic or deadly than a human child. A single touch could kill you. Leave a door open and a child could walk right into this factory, right into the monster world.
I won't go in the kid's room! You can't make me!
You're going in there because we need this. Our city is counting on you to collect those children's screams. Without Scream, we have no power. Yes, it's dangerous work, and that's why I need you to be at your best. I need scarers who are confident, tenacious, tough, intimidating.
Okay, so let's get back to reality. I hope this sound has waked you up. And let's go back to our introduction. So simply, the debriefing is a process of reflection of some sort of educational experience or any kind of incident, especially the critical incidents. And you do that guided by a facilitator. So there is an event, whether it's a simulation or critical incident that happened, and you want to reflect on that experience, and you are going to be guided by a debriefer, okay? It's very important, improving the safety and quality of care in NICU. And this according to what we call the experiential learning therapy. This is like adult learning is different from children learning. Adult learning, they learn by themselves. They don't want to be instructed. They want to be guided. So this is the whole concept of debriefing. So what's that makes different of debriefing from feedback? So debriefing is a group of participants in that incident or in that scenario. They gather together, they meet to recall, analyze, and reflect on that incident. And the goal, the final goal or objective is to improve the future practice. On the other side, feedback is that just a specific information to compare between the performance of that trainee and standard performance. And you give a one-way direction or one-way instructions to improve that performance. Debriefing is more an interactive feedback, and it's a reflective discussion. And we will go into more details in the next few slides. Why feedback is just unidirectional. You don't go into a detailed discussion about what happened. You just go about the scientific basis probably, and you ask the trainee to go from one way of performance to another, which is the standard one. So the contents of the debriefing is to reflect on experience, that's one, recognize the cognitive process that was behind that experience, and then make a mind shift of that cognitive process so the next time this performance is going to be better or going to be improved. What's the evidence? In general, this is beyond the scope of my lecture. However, just to make it shortly, there is no direct evidence that debriefing is directly influencing or improving patient care or patient safety. However, there are a lot of evidence that, for example, the systematic review in one way of after action review, they found that debriefing improved team performance and individual performance by almost 25%. Another evidence about the use of structured debriefing, it showed that it supported educational strategy and improve the clinical knowledge and the skills. Another evidence, numerous study that done, it claimed that debriefing programs with improved performance and or outcomes for directed quality improvement projects. Systematic review in 2014 of simulation-based debriefing showed that it improves knowledge, skills, and behavior. And these are the three concepts of education that we do. As I said, debriefing could be either after simulation or after some sort of critical incident that happened. The difference is that post-simulation, simulation, as we know, is situation allowed by a group of participants to experience a representative of a real event for the purpose of practice, learning, evaluation, and that's all. So debriefing is the core or the most important part of all this simulation process. Like, it's not just to go and do the simulation process and just go home. No, after the simulation process, the most important part is to reflect on what happened on that simulation scenario. So the competence of the debriefer perceived by the learner correlates the perceived quality of the simulation experience. While the incident is, as we know, it's most of the time is traumatic event, causes individual to experience strong emotional response that usual coping mechanisms are ineffective, like infant death, post-incident, like wrong medication, or as we can see, sometimes we cause harm to our babies, and it's highly recommended. And it helps improving communication, teamwork, and others. And in one survey, they found that 90% of the trainees who went through these critical incidents, they felt much better, and debriefing really helped them with that. So post-simulation debriefing focuses mainly on learning objective that you set already, while post-incident debriefing focuses on the emotional and the reaction and psychological support. You cannot do any kind of debriefing process without in advance setting objectives. Why do you want to do the debriefing? What are the objectives? You cannot cover everything in one debriefing session. You have to have your own objectives. And they will have three kinds of objectives that in almost every learning process, it could be either under one of these three. Either it's something related to the cognitive, which is the core knowledge that we read and we hear and we discuss, or something related to the psychomotor. It's something about the skills and instruction, or something related to what we call the affective, which is the feelings, the communication, and all this stuff. So wherever you go, you will not have anything out of these three general objective titles that could be in your educational process. So this is the debriefing mindset, how everything. You are in a unit or you watch a simulation scenario and you found out there is a gap, or you want to improve a knowledge gap in your unit. So you already identified the gap, and then you arrange for simulation and training process. So you have this performance gap identified. You try not to focus on this incident or on this defect that happened in the unit. You generalize it. You put it in a concept or in its context. And then you try to discuss solutions for this gap that happened. Why this incident happened? Why this baby had this sort of extubation? Why accidentally extubation? Why we are having this that ended up with doing harm for the baby? And eventually, we try after all these discussions and training to close this gap. So this is the mindset of the debriefing process that we want to do. So go into practical points. These are the steps of the debriefing process. So we'll start with, first, you have to set the learning environment. Setting the learning environment, the first and most important, number 1 and 2 and 3, in this is the safety and confidentiality. Everybody, involved in this, whether it's a real scenario or it's a simulation scenario, should understand that this is going to happen in a safe, no blame, no pointing, and in a confidential way, okay? And this is very important for every adult education process. And all members in the debriefing process should be responsible for maintaining this safety, and the facilitator should focus on these points. Also, the other things, as we said in the debriefing, it's not a one-way discussion. It's two-way discussion. So the learners should be involved with this process. And the idea of the instructor is to learn with the trainee, is not to tell or to learn from the facilitator, is to trainee to learn with the facilitator, okay? And again, the seating by itself, like, should be all in one circle. Like the facilitator should not be at the top or in front. It should be part of the group, okay? And of course, it's no blaming, exploratory. In most of the simulation centers or simulation rooms, usually we put these kind of ground rules that everybody should be aware. And usually we put it in a big handwriting and on the wall. So everybody should be aware what's going on. Everybody sits in the circle, the safety environment to explore feelings and learning. Each person has the freedom to say no or pass. If you don't want to comment, you don't have to comment. Just say pass. Just say maybe later. Nobody can force you to do anything. It's okay to listen and not have to talk. What is spoken in the group stays in the group. One person speaks at a time without interruptions. Speak only for yourself using I statement, and respect different backgrounds. So these are the ground rules that all the learners and the facilitators should agree upon before starting the debriefing process. Before the briefing, before an event or simulation, it is a quick session that happens before the simulation. Like if I'm going to teach the learners about, okay, today we are going to make a simulation scenario, how to manage diaphragmatic hernia. So we need to explain what's going to happen. We need to take the learners through the process of what's going to happen in the simulation, what's going to happen after that, and then to go to that process. They should be aware of what's going on. It's not a test. It's not an examination. It's a learning process, okay? The timing of the debriefing is important. There are two ways of doing the timing, either after the event, which can happen after the critical incident or after the simulation, or within the event, which happens only during the simulation. After the event, it can happen immediately after the simulation. It can happen within minutes or hour, or it can be delayed for weeks. And sometimes, probably this is the preferred method, at least for me, you give a quick debriefing of what happened, and then you arrange for another session. Let's talk about this in the next academic activity. Duration of the debriefing, there's a lot of debate about what's the optimal time for the debriefing, but you have to make a balance. There's no rule here. It depends on how much time do you have, how much time the learners have, and how much they can get the debriefing process without being exhausted. Prepare your checklist, the most important thing here, so you will not forget about it. And you will find tens and hundreds of checklists online, and you can use or borrow, or you can invent your own one. So there are checklists for the briefing before the debriefing process, checklist within what you are supposed to do within the debriefing process, and what to do after the debriefing process. Now the techniques that, again, there are tens of them and everything available on. And the simplest one is the directive feedback, which is more of a feedback than debriefing. Again, it's kind of discussion about what happened, get a quick feedback from the learner, and get into the closing the gap of difference. Next step is what we call the plus delta. So in the plus delta, you make a list and you put two sides. On one side, what are the things that went good? And what are the good things that happened? And you start with this one. And meanwhile, between each 1 or 2 points, you put in between them what are the things that need to be improved. So this is the plus and this is the delta. The third way, probably this is the most complicated and it needs some sort of training, what we call advocacy inquiry. It's very effective, but it needs a lot of training and it's not easy to do. So here, the facilitator is going to act as an advocate for the patient. He will take the defense for the patient and try to understand why this happened to me, why this happened to the patient, and try to understand what's the cognitive process behind this one, and try to elaborate more and then end up with a conclusion. So usually it starts with I, and then I follow that by observation, like I notice you have done that. And then it comes after that, inquiry, okay. So after that, you notice something, and then you put your opinion about what happened, and then you explore from the learner, why did you do that? For example, I noticed that you did not start chest compression after ensuring effective PPV, even though the heart rate was less than 60, right? So this started with I, and this is my observation. Okay, now what's my point of view? This concerned me as it might harm the baby, right? I'm the advocate of this baby. So I was supposed to get a chest compression after effective PPV and my heart rate less than 60. So the question is, what was your thought at this time? It's not why did you do that? No, what was your thinking about this? Why this did happen, okay? These are the main three that we went through. And again, there are a lot of debriefing techniques, like it suits everybody everywhere in different circumstances, in different situations, okay? I will not go through all this. You can find this online, and these are the references. Something like stop for 5 minutes, just a 5 minutes debriefing. You went with the resident, they did some sort of resuscitation, he or she did intubation, they did suction, whatever, and then the baby moved to it. Just take 5 minutes and take this resident and discuss, what do you think that you did good for this baby? What are the things that needs improvement? Just 5 minutes, summarize the case, things what went well, opportunities to improve, and point to actions and responsibilities. This is the one I like the most. It's the Pearl Healthcare Debriefing by Atam Cheng and his colleagues. Again, it gives you a checklist of what you want to do or what you are going through. And even there are some apps, and you can print some cards just to make it easier for you to go through the debriefing. This is, again, another one. This is mostly used, probably the most widely used technique for the post-incident. So this is what they call who, what, when, where, why, and how. So this is the details of every question you need to ask. With every step, you go after an incident. And as I said, when you have an incident, you don't have to go immediately after the incident. You can do that later, but you have to go through these checklists, okay? Things that might help you with the debriefing process is to use the video facilitated debriefing. As we saw in the cartoon, they were videotaping the incident, right? So when you have something that you want to go back, you have the video, you can use it, you can go back through that video and point to the areas that you need to improve. Tele-debriefing, this is like when you have an area in white area, in different areas, even in areas where, especially when you used to have transport system, like you can, before doing the neonatal transport or after doing the neonatal transport, you can do it at the time of the telemedicine, you can do tele-debriefing. And this is again important because when you are talking to people in the rural area, they got, especially when they have sick newborn, they get under a lot of stress. So you have to debrief them. Otherwise, they will take this trauma to the next baby and the next baby and the next baby. And definitely this will affect the care of these babies. Now, what are the barriers for debriefing? It's always the time. We don't have time to do our service. We don't have time to do our academic activities. And again, we don't have time to do debriefing. But again, it's crucial. It's very important. Unavailability of trained facilitators. This by itself is very important. Debriefing is a very kind of sensitive. You have to know how to approach your learners. You need to know how to deal with your learners. There are different types of learners, different personalities. And each personality you have to deal with in a different way. You don't want to end up, as we have seen several times, some learners, they leave the simulation center or the simulation scenario crying. So this is not fair. And this is because the facilitator was not well trained. We don't have to cause trauma. This is not right. Missing appropriate settings, of course, I don't believe that much, because debriefing, you can do it anywhere and anytime. Like, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to have a high fancy simulation center to go through all this process. You just need 2, 3 chairs, 5 chairs, and you just need a discussion in a closed room in a confidential way. The workload again, and fearing the risk of legal actions, and all they should be taken care of. The debriefer himself sometimes, or herself, sometimes they need to be debriefed, because the debriefing process is, again, is one of our actions, one of our teaching activities, one of our job descriptions, right? So we have to learn how to do it. And the best way for the debriefer to learn how to do it right is to get debriefed after that. So just to discuss whatever, like, it doesn't have to be someone more expert, just to sit with another debriefer and discuss where the learning objective that we talk about were met. Was the approach of the debriefing was enough? What are the things that were good with the debriefing process? And again, what are the things that need improvement? Seating arrangement, very important to discuss and to arrange. The transition between the learners and from topic to topic is very important. The disagreement, which commonly happen, and sometimes it reach an uncontrolled level, again, is not easy, and there is something called difficult debriefing, and so on. So before you leave, just remember to summarize what did you learn today as an instructor, as a facilitator, and the learners. And if they have any question, you can give them a didactic handouts or whatever, and to thank again. You thank the learners, you thank the actors, if you have any actors, you thank the technician and everybody. And always remember, as they say in North America, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. This is very important, okay? Now, I'm not sure if this video will play. I just have trimmed 2 videos, 2 minutes each, and it will give you a quick, just 5 minutes. Your technical is... You can have tens of videos on YouTube, different ways of debriefing and how to prepare for debriefing. And even there are workshops to teach people how to do the debriefing. But just keep in mind, this is very important and very crucial for your trainees and for yourself, okay? I hope it worked out, but sorry, you missed the videos, okay? So I put 2 examples of how is the good debriefing work, how the bad debriefing work, and how the good debriefing should work, okay? And that's fine. Okay.